Bases dropped on a chilly Friday morning here in Atlanta, Georgia, October 19th. It's Soccer Down Here weekend preview edition, and it's a massive weekend for Major League Soccer. Every team in the league, I think for the first time maybe since opening day, is on the same number of matches, except for Real Salt Lake, who had to jump ahead because of not playing on decision day, and we'll get into them in a minute. They had a big night last night. But everybody in the Eastern Conference is on the same number that is in the playoff race. We know where everything stands. We'll get you ready for that. Big weekend at the Benz, Atlanta United hosting Chicago Fire. I know a lot of people will be looking up to Pennsylvania for Philadelphia and the New York Red Bulls because if results go Atlanta's way, the Supporters' Shield could be in the hands of the Five Stripes very soon. And we'll see how everything goes this weekend. We'll get you ready for all of it. Jason Longshore, John Nelson with you. Jarrett Smith will be dropping in periodically. Doug Robertson will be joining us at 10:30 to make our previews for the match and our predictions and where we're usually wrong, but sometimes close. And there we go. John, let's get into last night, though. Real Salt Lake, backs against the wall. They don't play decision day. This was game 33 for them. They end their season on Sunday in Portland. And it felt like this match against New England could tip them either into a playoff spot or almost end the season. And they were missing a lot of faces. Some of them did make it back to be on the bench if needed. And when you start out the way that Real Salt Lake did last night, you don't need to turn to the bench too much.
No, and when you put the pedal down and it's 3-0 at the break and you finish the way that you finish, in the post-match, part of what Mike Petke talked about was giving a shout-out to his academy. And at one film session, they show the academy players how New England sets up, how they play. And Petke made a point to say that after that one film session, they had the Revs down cold. And having that to start up in your preparation, I think it can't be understated. And with all the absences, whether you were going to have them, whether they're going to be on the bench, to have your academy step up like that, play like the Revs, resemble the Revs, and then you go out and thump the Revs. I think it speaks a lot to the prep of the staff at RSL and really underscores what match day 33 meant for them.
Yeah, it's not specifically the academy. I mean, it's guys who've graduated from the academy and then went on to play for Real Monarchs, their USL team, and that's where I'd probably give the biggest, compliments to, because we're seeing it, I think, week after week now. When you have your own USL team and you're able to give guys minutes in meaningful games, and they have to go through adversity. They have to deal with falling behind. They have to deal with a strong opponent. They have to deal with teams that play differently. You're just better prepared. I mean, you can try to do all of that in a film session or in a training session, and it's just impossible to replicate. You can only replicate it in real games, and that's what USL gives you. And Real Monarchs, a lot of the guys who contributed last night were guys who led them to the best regular season record in USL last season with the Real Monarchs. So that's a big part of it, but being able to turn to young guys and have a film session with young guys stepping into the lineup, a brand new midfield across the board, and run through one session and you know how the opponent's going to play. It's a credit to the film session. It's a credit to Real Salt Lake. It's also a little bit of, man, New England's pretty easy to figure out. And RSL did. Dominant performance from RSL. 4th minute goal from Nick Beasler. 14th minute from Bofo Salcedo. 29th minute from Corey Baird. Nick Raimondo makes a save on a penalty in the midst of all that. Then you go up 4-0 with Damir Krylock in the 50th, and it's over. Kellen Rowe gets one back in the 69th, but game over at 3-0. I mean, it's done. Penalty could have brought them back to at least within shouting distance. No, Nick Raimondo's not having it, and Real Salt Lake is a win away on Sunday from clinching a playoff spot. Puts a lot of extra pressure on the LA Galaxy going to Minnesota this weekend. But Real Salt Lake was so good in the first half. This is the halftime comments it provoked from Brad Friedel, manager of the New England Revolution.
We're joined now by the head coach. I can't imagine you're very happy about proceedings through 4-5, Brad.
Pathetic. It really was. I mean, I don't care what kind of part you are in the season, whether you're in the playoffs, out of the playoffs, whether it's a preseason game. Absolutely, completely unacceptable performance. They're playing with a lot of their second team, and it is a simple case of just getting outworked. They don't outplay you. They hit long balls and they run after it, and that's what we're not competing with.
Brad, what's surprising from up here is that the amount of possession, the passing accuracy is so poor from the Reds. Can you put your finger on why?
Mentality. That's it. It's a mentality, and we see it a lot creep into the squad. It's something that we as a staff have to change. Sometimes you have to do that through personnel. Other times you just have to keep persevering, but it's a mentality. And every game means something. Every game means something to the owners. Every game means something to the staff. Every game means something to the fans. And when you put a pathetic performance like that, and that is the word, it's just not acceptable.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Well, mincing no words, Brad Friedel, it's been a tough night.
So, Brad Friedel not happy at halftime.
3
obviously.
mentalities and 2 pathetics.
Yeah, I mean, you start with pathetic, and then you keep going from there. This is an interesting spot for where the New England Revolution are, and it really comes on the back of some comments that Brad Friedel made to Jonathan Segal, who is a writer in New England, covers the Revs, covers MLS. He interviewed Friedel this week ahead of the Hall of Fame induction. That's where Friedel's going in this weekend as the new grand opening of the National Soccer Hall of Fame. But this quote combined with talking about mentality there, I don't know if Brad Friedel's got his finger on the pulse of what the modern player is and what your average player in 2018 in Major League Soccer is like. This is the quote that made the rounds earlier in the day. He said, "You have to think the first time I walked into a locker room, this isn't just me, but the same with Claudio Reyna, Joe Max Moore, Kobe Jones, Brian McBride, Carlos Bocanegra. I wasn't welcome. Over here, it's interesting when we sign players, everyone comes up and is all, hey, how are you? When you sign players overseas and you walk in the door, people automatically looked at me. If they're friends with the other goalkeeper, they wouldn't talk to me. If you sign a midfielder and they come in, all the midfielders at the club want you to fail. None of them want you to do well. You become a teammate over time, but you have to prove yourself. Once you prove you can play, then you're accepted, but not until then. It's just a new player thing. You could be an Englishman going into an English club. You're a new player to that group and have to prove yourself. Over here, it's a little more friendly, which is a bit of a shock to the system. I'm used to the cutthroat nature of this player not taking my contract. That's what it amounts to. We will get to that. There's no doubt in my mind." I totally get where he's going. 100% get where he's going. And Hercules Gomez echoed that. He said the quote spot on. The sport is cutthroat in nature around the world. You're taking someone's job, their livelihood. Eric Winalda has echoed the same things. I mean, I've had conversations with Eric about this. I've seen him give a discussion about this type of mentality and this type of approach to the National Soccer Coaches Association of America convention. So you take that, you combine it with what he had to say at halftime, then his post-match to team reporter, Revolution employee Jeff Lemieux. I'm looking for a huge response talking about next week. I don't care where we are in the league. I don't care where we are in the season. People pay money to come watch us play, and they definitely don't come to watch people not put in effort. So let's try to read between the lines here. He's talking about the effort and mentality of his team in multiple different ways. They go out and get run off the park in the first half. Kind of the same as what happened in Atlanta, to be honest. Atlanta could have put that away 4-5-0. Knighton made a couple of big saves, and they got one late to make it 2-1, but New England was never really in that match. Is Friedel connecting with his team? Is he trying to make a point now in the media to get through to his players? It just feels like he's not getting the effort that he wants to see. I would agree. I don't think the effort and that never say die mentality is there right now with this team. It feels like they've checked out. But the talk about culture, can he make that work in Major League Soccer going forward?
I don't know today. I mean, I think that, you've got well, I won't necessarily say a generation because Friedel played into his 40s, but I think that it is different. I mean, I get where he's coming from when he's talking about, you're going after a guy's job. That's not different here in the States because you're still going after a guy's job, and someone will lose out in these situations. But I don't know if my way or the highway this late in the season is going to set some kind of a message. I would have thought that if you wanted to send that, you send that coming out of the blocks. You set a tone from the second you walk in the door. And I will admit that I have not listened to every single piece of post-match that Brad Friedel has given this year, so I don't know if this message has been continuous. But I would have thought that if you wanted to say to your players, okay, here's the mentality, here's what I'm expecting, here's what I'm anticipating from each and every single one of you every single day when you put on this kit, when you put on our practice gear, when you're doing what we're supposed to be doing. To drop it in match day 33, is the message being brought too late, or is this something that's trying to set something up for an off season so he can bring in the players that he wants to bring in and jettison the guys after match 34 that he thinks are not a part of what he wants to have for the Revs? I think for me, that's the thought bubble over my head where all of this is concerned. But you have individuals today of a certain age who will sit there and they will stare at a person of authority if there's an age gap, and they'll tune them out if they don't think that the message is either genuine or if the tone isn't right, because there's a lot of confidence in an individual at their workplace. And if the tone that's being taken isn't appreciative or whatever, or understanding of the effort that's being put in, I think that you get players who will tune out. And I think that this is a slippery slope for Friedel here going forward.
Yeah, it's a tricky spot, and you do have to wonder how long this has been discussed. I don't remember seeing it to this degree until pretty recently. It just feels like there is a big disconnect. And you saw it last night when, after a couple of goals, you make a sub in the first half, pulling out an all-star in Wilfried Zahibo, and you don't even acknowledge him as he walks by. That's an interesting situation all the way around. Zahibo, I think, is a player in this league. I think Zahibo's a guy who's quality in this league. He was in the all-star team and played pretty well. And then you get a situation where you're yanking him before halftime, and you don't even acknowledge him as he walks by. You don't even say anything about why you did it. If it's tactical, if you're trying to get another attacking player on. You brought on Juan Agudelo, but okay. Why are you ignoring the guy when he walks by? Unless you're upset with him, unless you're trying to make a point. And it feels like there's a lot of points trying to be made. Did the team fall apart on him? Did the team's mentality fall apart on him? Or did he never get it across to the team? That's the question here. I thought Ben Baer from MLSsoccer.com had some really good points about this, and I think coming from more of an MLS perspective and maybe just a little bit more of a modern perspective. And no, Ben Baer did not have the career that Brad Friedel did. There's very few out there who've had the career that Brad Friedel's had. So he has a very unique perspective that none of us, I think, can truly understand. But Ben tweeted out, this quote's getting a lot of play today, going to go out on a limb a bit and say, this is at least in part due to him maybe not understanding this generation of player. I doubt locker rooms are as cutthroat as they were 20 years ago. We like seeing people succeed now. Everyone is making money now all across the world. It's not as life or death. Chemistry as a team means wanting to win. players on teams that win are more attractive, even if they're not playing as much. It shows they can buy in. Making players miserable and hating each other doesn't seem like a good strategy with millennials. Being competitive is enough these days without hating your teammates. In other words, this is not the downfall of American soccer and MLS. It's the words of a man who is learning to become a professional soccer coach. I think Ben nailed it. And it's not to say that Friedel's wrong. It's just, I don't know if, because that's the mentality in other parts of the world, because that's what Brad Friedel went through, because that might be what Eric Remedi just went through at Bonfield, because, maybe that is the mentality in Argentina today. Maybe that is the mentality in Venezuela or Ecuador or Colombia or Guatemala or Honduras or England or wherever. Maybe it still is to that degree. I don't know if it's as cutthroat as it used to be. And just because that's the case in other places doesn't mean that's the case in Major League Soccer. You can say that it's like that in other places. You're not changing the whole player base and the whole background base of Major League Soccer players overnight by snapping your fingers and yelling about it. It's not going to happen. So you have to adapt. You're not going to be able to bring in 25 players who went through this in England and get the mentality that you're trying to get across and want to kill each other in training, but then it comes out in a good way on the field. That's not going to happen here. It's just not. What was the Bear Bryant movie about Texas A&M, the Junction Boys?
Yep.
Wouldn't he be in jail today if that happened?
Pretty much.
So
yep.
It's nice to look back on it, nice to say, well, back in my day and all those things. It's not that now. And it's never going to be that with MLS because of the wide, varied nature of players' backgrounds. I get what he's saying in there has to be accountability. You have to want it. You have to give effort every day, no matter where you are in the standings. All those things completely valid. But the thing about not wanting to like your teammates or new teammates, that's not the angle I would have went down if I'm trying to make this point, if I'm Brad Friedel. I just don't think it comes across well in the modern game, and it doesn't come across well in MLS. And I'm just saying that these comments came out during the afternoon. The players saw them. That it makes the rounds to them on social media, and then they put out a performance like they did last night. It's not a good look all the way around. And we'll see what happens because this team has fallen off completely since May, since the end of May. Since Atlanta went to Gillette Stadium in May where they were a playoff team, they've been awful. And it's getting worse. It's not Orlando bad yet, but, man, last night, that's a big egg they laid in Utah. And I agree with Ben. I think these are the words and the feelings of somebody who was an amazing player and one of the greatest goalkeepers in U.S. soccer history, but a first-year manager of a club. And we'll see what changes get made. Does he double down on that approach? Does he kind of find an in-between? I think we'll see, because the other thing that we saw in that broadcast last night on the New England side was they just broke ground on a $35 million training facility. We can talk about the Revs and Robert Kraft and not spending money and all that. $35 million? It's a pretty big investment in a training facility. He's going to have more resources to work with. That should help their academy, which has been kind of meh. That should help everything along in New England. So those expectations are going to be higher than they've ever been. They've had... Friedel's their third manager since about 2001 or 2, because Steve Nicol was there forever. Then Jay Heaps was there for a long time. Managers were allowed to just hang around. I don't know if that's going to be the case with increased expectations and increased investment. So year 2 for Brad Friedel in New England is going to be very, very interesting in light of all of these different comments. We'll come back on the other side, talk about what the win meant for RSL, and we'll talk about the Western Conference playoff picture after this. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by ATLvCHI and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve ATLvCHI at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve ATLvCHI is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, October 19th edition. Talking RSL New England from last night. RSL is on the verge of a playoff spot if they get a win in Portland this weekend, and that's their last opportunity to add any points because they are not playing on decision day. They're the odd team out with the odd number of teams. They will be watching all of the chaos. They'd like to be watching that with a playoff spot sealed up and not have to hope for lots of help. But RSL dials up a huge performance last night with a midfield consisting of a guy who's played center back mostly this season, a guy who had played in one match and has been injured most of the season, 2 players who have mostly played at forward, and 1 guy who's played in the midfield off the bench. That was their 5. And they dominated the beginning of this match. Came out with the huge start that they needed to take control of it. Let's hear from Mike Petke after the match.
Well, first with the lineup, I'm sure that raised a couple of eyebrows. Some of the selection, I'm sure whatever it's called, the soapbox or the oracle, whatever the heck they call it, we're probably saying, this and that and this. We had 3 players coming back from international duty that flew from as far as Qatar, as Joao did, and we had 2 suspensions in Nick and Kyle and Sonny. The pairings that I put out there were twofold. First, all of them had experience in this league except for Natum. All of them has played a significant amount of time in this league for me this year and last year. So there was no concern with having to bring these guys on. I knew they were hungry. The pairing of Marcelo and Natum, we knew we were facing a team that was extremely athletic, extremely strong, extremely fast and aggressive. And you look at those two, that's a big part of their game. So overall, these guys stepped up tonight for us, and now it's all about Sunday.
Yeah, guys stepped up for Petke here. I love where he was. I may be going for Twitter, and he goes with the soapbox or the oracle, and
yes,
people talking this or that or that or this or that's good stuff from Petke. Man, that guy's awesome. But they get it done, and now they have a chance to seal a playoff spot this weekend. That's a big time performance. Corey Baird. I've said Chris Mueller was the favorite for Rookie of the Year. I think Corey Baird has taken it, and I think last night sealed it. Corey Baird was outstanding last night. RSL is an interesting team because they can throw Corey Baird up top. Athletic, good 1v1, just young player playing with a lot of confidence. They can throw Damir Kreilach up top. more of a savvy veteran who's going to try to combine with the midfield, more of a midfielder playing forward. They can play Albert Rusnak up top. We've seen that. Plays it more like a false nine. This is an interesting group that I don't think they have really hit on who they are just yet. I think they are still kind of figuring that out, and Petke's still trying things, and they're young. This is a young group for the most part, but they're pretty dangerous. I think when they're on, they're among the best teams in the West. I think they just have such a huge inconsistency that it's going to hurt them this year, and that's something that Petke will have to try to work on going forward.
And you look at how they are at Rio Tinto versus how they are on the road, and I think that experience should help in that second column as you're going forward and getting used to systems and combinations and all that kind of stuff. Compare who they are at home, 11-2-4, with who they are on the road, 3-10-3. And you'd like to think that with age and experience that gap becomes somewhat smaller between that 11 and the 3 in the right-hand column when we're talking about time away from Sandy, Utah.
So let's look at the Western Conference as it currently stands. Everybody on 32 matches except for RSL on 33. Dallas on 57 points. Kansas City and LA on 56. Kansas City is 4 ahead in goal differential. Seattle's on 53. They would be hosting Portland in a knockout round game as it currently stands. Portland's on 51. RSL would be headed to Bank of California as it currently stands to face LAFC. RSL's on 49. Galaxy have a game in hand on RSL. They're on 45. Vancouver is all but eliminated now on 43. They have to win out. RSL has to lose to Portland. Vancouver would have to flip a goal differential. That's
you
ridiculous.
Said there'd be no math.
Well, forget it.
15.
Vancouver's out. Forget it. Vancouver's out. Forget it. They're done. They blew it when they had a lead in the 60th minute against Sporting Kansas City and fell apart. So, LA Galaxy are the only ones who can catch RSL, but a win from RSL against Portland seals it. Western Conference games this weekend. They will all start at 5 o'clock. ESPN has the Galaxy LA Minnesota game. 50,000 plus at TCF Bank. Zlatan is going to play. He made that point clear to the media, I guess, yesterday.
I owe them to come.
Yes, I wanted to get the exact quote because
I got it.
It's very Zlatan-y. Go ahead.
I owe them to come. Obviously, they don't have this crowd every home game, so I'm sure that they're not coming from Minnesota. So I come and I make them enjoy.
I would love to see Minnesota fans boo him every time he touches the ball. I mean,
awesome.
That's such an obnoxious statement, and yes, that's his gimmick. I know. I've known about Zlatan for a long time, but it's disrespectful. It's just flat out disrespectful. It's disrespectful to the fans of Minnesota who are great fans who have watched a lot of bad soccer. It's just it's not cool. So it'd be nice to see him score nothing this weekend and Minnesota boo him every time he touches the ball because the whole Minnesota campaign to get 50,000 plus had nothing to do with Zlatan. It had to do with ending this era of the club on a high and setting a record for attendance in professional soccer in Minnesota. There was nothing I saw from an advertising perspective that mentioned Zlatan because you know what? Nobody knew if he was going to show up because they play on turf. So
now I know why my Kings lost last night, too.
Because he dropped the puck?
Yes.
Well, Zlatan...
poisoning multiple sports in Los Angeles now.
No, and he's not because he's carried the Galaxy this season. I'm not... Look, I don't like the guy. I don't like the shtick. It gets just stupid to me. I'd like to see more guys like Wayne Rooney come in and just put their head down and play and make their teammates better and not be all about themselves. And also not say disrespectful things about other teams' fans and no, they're not coming for minutes. Shut up. Just stop. Stop it.
Stop talking.
Hey, the Galaxy, he's had a great season for them. Totally. He has. I'd still like to know if the Galaxy would have been better without him if Ola Kamara played up top and they played the 4-2-3-1 and it looked like they were going to play. I felt like Siggy Schmid was always trying to figure out what worked, what could work. He opted for the no defense to find a way to make it work, and that didn't work, and now Siggy Schmid's not working. And Dom Kinnear has come in, and he's said, look, we're going to play defense, and it's been better. Don't think it's going to be good enough, though, because I think Minnesota would be very energized to end the Galaxy season and end Zlatan's season. And maybe Zlatan doesn't play on the final week because the game doesn't mean anything, and, he's bigger than that. So that's the ESPN game. That's what kicks things off in the Western Conference games at 5 o'clock. Others to keep an eye on. San Jose, Colorado. Yay.
That game's going to finish -1 to -1. Each team will have an own goal.
No, San Jose scores goals. Colorado doesn't. San Jose's got 48 goals. That's a good number. And Wondolowski is trying to set a record, which I hope he sets. I hope he sets it here because it'd be at home. So Wando for a brace or give him a hat trick, break the record, ride off into the sunset. That would be a great thing to come out of that match, and maybe the only good thing to come out of that match. Portland, RSL. Portland can get to where they are hosting a knockout round game. I don't think they want to go to Seattle in the knockout round right now, but they have to deal with an RSL team that had most of its starting midfield rested last night. So that helps RSL a little bit that they were able to get through, get the win. Starters get some rest, and now they go to Portland on short rest on Thursday, from Thursday to Sunday, and have to take care of business. So we'll see if Portland can deal with that. Other games, LAFC hosting Vancouver. LAFC has a shot to avoid the knockout round. They're even with Sporting Kansas City, and Sporting Kansas City goes to Dallas in what is the game of the week for sure, and one of the games of the season, the top two in the Western Conference. Sporting Kansas City, at one point Wednesday night, looked like they would be on the road in the knockout round. Now, they're avoiding the knockout round altogether. Can they go to Dallas and win? What do you think?
Nah. I think it's going to end up being a draw, because I was having this discussion with our buddies up at Barn Burner for their weekly MLS weekend preview, and I said that I thought that because of both teams being who they are right now, I was going to go with a shared result and just continue the chaos.
Well, see, that would be fine. If you're Sporting Kansas City, if you're Peter Vermes, that's completely fine. Even a loss is okay if it's a close one, because decision day, Sporting Kansas City hosts LAFC. They get a chance to take care of their business there to avoid the knockout round. So let's say they lose. Let's say they lose 1-0. Then your goal differential's 20. LAFC, say they win 3-0 over Vancouver. Then their goal differential's 20. LAFC would be on 59 points. Sporting Kansas City would be on 56. But if Sporting Kansas City beats LAFC in the final day, they would increase their goal differential and they would avoid the knockout round. So for Kansas City here, anything you get's a bonus. Anything you get out of it is a bonus. You can play pretty freely in Dallas. I think they give a really good performance. I do think it's a draw, but that would be just fine for them. That's all you need to do here. Dallas is 10-1-5 at home. That one loss to San Jose that makes no sense, but yes, it happens sometimes. Sporting Kansas City's good on the road, 7-6-3. But I think it's a draw. I think LAFC beats Vancouver, and it sets up for Sporting, LA, the battle for the 2-3 on decision day. And that'll be one of the games to watch next weekend for sure. Houston-Seattle is your other game in the Western Conference this weekend. Seattle, they could still get to a number 2 spot. They're on 53 points. They're 3 back from Kansas City and LA. They could also have to go on the road in the knockout round. They should take care of business here. They have a lot to play for, but they're going to Houston, and you never know when you go into Houston. 8-5-3 at home. It's one of the best records of one of the lesser teams in the league at home. Seattle on the road has been pretty good, 7-6-3. We'll see what Seattle's made of in this one. I'm still, even though they've had a great run since the beginning of July, it's slowed down a little bit. I think the jury's still out just a bit on the Sounders. This is a statement game for them. If they go down and get a comfortable win and take care of business, then they're a team you got to watch for in the playoffs, and they're a team that could go to the Cup. If they go to Houston and lay an egg, what's their confidence going to be like going into decision day and into the playoffs? I'm not entirely convinced yet about the Sounders. We'll see what they're made of on Sunday. We're going to take a break, come back, look at the Eastern Conference, start talking Atlanta, Chicago, and yes, there are more Tata Martino rumors that we will discuss as well.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's there. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by ATLvCHI and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve ATLvCHI at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve ATLvCHI is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome. Soccer. Back together. We'll talk about the Eastern Conference and what the playoff picture is looking in the East. Okay, there. I think we have John Nelson back.
Yes.
Yay. All right.
Yay.
One bit of housekeeping. We will be on hand at the Gulch on Sunday for the tailgate show presented by ATLvCHI and Associates. Early time for us. We will be starting at 11 a.m. That is when the tailgate starts. I am looking at their menu right now, and it's
breakfast.
Pretty ridiculous with chicken, sausage, and sausage, biscuits, cheddar cheese grits, Tito's Bloody Marys. I will not be partaking in that, but, man, that sounds good. Okay, so we're starting at 11 because I have to get in the building early because Mike Conti and I get the opportunity to call the unified team match between Atlanta and Chicago. That's at 12:30. Stay tuned. I believe it is going to be broadcast on Facebook Live for Atlanta United. And I think fans will be able to come in a little earlier than normal for the second half of that. So if you can get in early to see that, definitely do it. If you can't, connect on Facebook Live, watch some of it. Great athletes. It's been really cool to see them at different points this season. I had a chance to be out at the training facility when they were introduced and when they did their signing day. We got to see them play in Chicago. they pair up with another MLS team during the season, and Atlanta's unified team went to Chicago and played the Fire there after the match, and we got to watch some of that and watch Brad Gazan come back out. Like, I don't even know if he went. I think he went into the locker room and just grabbed a jacket and came straight back out to cheer his guys on. Greg Garza as well. Those are your ambassadors for the unified team. Guys who put in a lot of their own personal time to support these athletes. And I know Greg did it last year as well, and Greg's become really good friends with some of the families involved. Such a great initiative from Atlanta United, from Special Olympics Georgia. The whole thing is really cool. So Mike and I are thrilled to be able to be part of it. So that means our tailgate show will be a little earlier than normal. You can watch on Twitter at Soccer Down Here if you're not in the Gulch just yet. And if you are, come join us, ask some questions, yell at us, throw things, whatever you want to do. It's all good.
Well, throw things at the tailgate, not when they're inside the building.
Yes, at the tailgate. Don't throw things inside the building because you'll probably get kicked out. That was kind of understood.
Did you want to do the other piece of housekeeping, or did you want to wait?
Sure, we can, because I think it's actually active now. Go ahead.
Well, do we get music with this, or how do you want to do it? Trumpets?
Let me make sure it's active first. I'm going to go ahead and we're gonna take a leap of faith here and say that we get the news jingle. Breaking news, we think, and if you are an Apple person or an iPhone person, you can probably tell us quickly. We think the Soccer Down Here app is officially available for download in the App Store. Man, they've been difficult to deal with. There was some weird things with coding, and thank you to Tim at Home Before Dark and taking a look at it and trying to help us through it. On your end, we figured out that it was something that nothing that we could do, nothing that Tim could do. Had to get some things sorted out on the back end from everybody involved. Finally got it. It's been approved. I believe it's available for download. If any of our Apple listeners want to check and tweet at us and tell us, that would be much appreciated. So you will be able to listen if you listen on soccerdownhere.net, if you use the Spreaker app for other great programs on the Spreaker network, or you can download a Soccer Down Here specific app for Android and now for Apple. We think. If not, it'll be like any minute now, so very soon.
Yeah, because we were doing some recon and it was up on iPads that have Apple. So that was first thing this morning.
So we think
that was
available.
Where we're getting our intel.
Yes. So we could use some clarification. We need to see it. Yes, it is confirmed. Sherbs is on the case, and it is in the App Store. Woohoo! Man. It took a while.
Yeah.
But it's
Joe
there.
Boss. Okay.
Well, yes,
All
Joe's
right.
having some technical difficulties. I don't know Joe's technical difficulties. We'll try to help him. But
yeah,
if you are an Apple person, you can now download the SDH app. And if you do, go back and listen to yesterday's 1v1 with Scott Donnelly from ATLvCHI. It was a great conversation just to catch up with Scott and kind of be away from the season a little bit and just be able to talk in broader terms about the team and goals and how players developed as the year went on. Great insight from him. And it was really cool to talk to him and realize that he goes back and listens to all of the broadcasts, and he was echoing points that he said he was echoing that I made on broadcasts, which was kind of cool. I was like, okay, you're paying attention, and you're not yelling at me. I didn't say anything completely wrong about what you were trying to do. So I'm going to take that as a compliment.
There you go.
It was a great conversation. Check that out. It's about close to 40 minutes. We talked for a long time.
Serious?
Yeah, really good stuff. Scott's one of the good guys. I think he had a really good first year in Atlanta. I think the way the team finished showed that they're on the right path. And I think things are going to be even better with Atlanta United 2 and USL next year. And I mean, you look at what a Real Monarchs does, and we talked about it with Real Salt Lake. They're a team that plays a lot of young guys, a lot of academy guys. They supplement it with other, key veterans, and they're successful. I think Atlanta United, too, can be the same. He jokingly said as we were leaving that his goal for next year was 34-0 and a USL Cup. So a little optimistic, but we'll see what happens. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch the twos next year as well. Eastern Conference games this weekend: Atlanta, Chicago, DC United hosting New York City, Montreal hosting Toronto, Orlando hosting Columbus, Philadelphia hosting the New York Red Bulls. Let's talk about the non-Supporter Shield ones quickly before we go to break. DC and New York City. New York City's in third place, 53 points. They can be caught. DC's in sixth place on 47 points. They can move up. They could actually host a knockout round game if things fall for them. Kind of unbelievable to think about where they were a few weeks ago. What do you think happens here, DC and NYC at Audi Field?
I'll go with DC United. I'll take the hot streak, and I'll go with Team Chaos. So I'll say that the roll continues.
Yeah, I think they continue it. I do. I think DC gets the win here. Paul Arriola's back. That'll give them a lift. And I think DC United gets the win like 2-1. Montreal, Toronto. So Montreal's playoff future is out of their hands now, but they have to win to stay alive. Toronto, done, but we know that Toronto and Montreal do not like each other.
No, they don't.
I think Toronto ends Montreal's season.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think that one way or the other, I just don't think Montreal comes out of it with a win. I think that for chippiness factor, I think that it'll be a fun watch for those who will be watching multiple games. So make sure that you have your picture-in-picture, your quad box, or whatever figured out. I think this one will be a fun one for those who are not tied to either one of those two teams. I'll say Toronto really throws a wrench into everything and just closes the casket in the casket match.
Yeah, they're not throwing a wrench. They're throwing a twig
the whole
at Montreal to trip them up because, no, it's done. They're not throwing anything. It's done. Montreal has to hope for help, so this would just trip them up a little bit, and they'd fall over, and then DC's going to win and clinch anyway. So Toronto beats Montreal and points and laughs and goes, hey, and then that's over. Orlando, Columbus. Orlando, can they be a spoiler to the Columbus crew? Columbus is in fifth place. Okay. Just no chance. Just no hope of Orlando.
Zero. Less than zero. We will see plenty of James O'Connor face on the sidelines in this match.
Man. Okay. Columbus is 3-8-5 on the road.
It's Orlando.
Columbus has only scored 39 goals this season.
It's Orlando.
Columbus is the second lowest scoring team in the league this season. They have 5 more goals than Colorado. Okay. I'm just saying. Columbus isn't exactly lighting it up these days. They've got a lot of pressure on them. I think with DC breathing down their neck now, Columbus could move up to third. They could fall to 6. It's tricky. I mean, technically, if Columbus loses out and Montreal wins out, Columbus could go home and Montreal and DC would go to the playoffs. That'd be nuts. So they got to go get something here. I would agree. I think they do. I don't think it's going to be a dominating performance, though. I don't know if Columbus has that in them these days. I mean, it could be a dicey 1-0,
2-1
late goal. I don't think Columbus can score 2 goals. I don't, even against Orlando. I don't know what's going on in Columbus. Maybe it's distractions with Mr. Berhalter. Maybe it's just all the Save the Crew stuff. We'll see if that gives them a boost. Now, that's the flip side. Do they have a ton of momentum coming out of all that, knowing where they're going to be next year and being able to just focus on playing? Could be the case. And, hey, there is not a better opponent than Orlando to get things right. That's for sure. But I think it's going to be tight. I think Columbus does get the win, but I'm thinking 1-0. I'm thinking kind of an ugly one, but they find a way through and they get through it. We're going to take a break, come back, talk Philadelphia and New York. start talking Atlanta, Chicago. There's also some news off the field that's quite interesting in Major League Soccer, and we'll get into that as well in hour number 2. Doug Robertson joins us at 10:30. We'll make our predictions then. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative, and that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by ATLvCHI and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve ATLvCHI at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve ATLvCHI is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
And we are back. Soccer Down Here, October 19th. Five Stripe Friday preview edition. Atlanta, Chicago, live from the Benz, 3 o'clock on Sunday, 70,000 plus. The Supporter Shield is in play for Sunday if Philadelphia takes care of the Red Bulls, and we'll get into that one as well. But we got to talk some rumors. Yeah, I know. It happens. Eric Gomez of ESPN, I think, really caught up on everything in terms of, and specifically in English, because a lot of the rumors thus far have been in Spanish and out of Mexico. It's pretty much echoing what's already been out there. He says there is a verbal agreement with Mexico for Tata Martino to become the next coach of the Mexican national team. The thing that was interesting to me about Gomez's report is he says there's a verbal agreement. He also talks about contingencies if things don't happen. That's why it's a verbal agreement, folks. I think people have taken that to mean there's a contract, which, no, there's not. Even according to Eric Gomez of ESPN, he's under contract. So it's a tricky situation, but if there's a verbal agreement, but Mexico is preparing contingencies, well, there you go. And the way Gomez breaks it down is kind of interesting, the way the whole thing's went. So it sounds like on Mexico's part, they were interested. They weren't getting anywhere. They interviewed a whole bunch of other people. They didn't get what they wanted. They've come back to it. And this is, I guess, where the crazy budget numbers that have been thrown around are starting to come from, about Mexico having to get their budget for next year approved. And in Gomez's report also, he talks about how this would not even just be through the 2022 World Cup. It would be all the way through 2026, which is incredibly rare, and makes a lot more sense if you would be leaving what is a great job in Atlanta for this. Yeah, you're going to have some commitment. And a commitment like that, I'm pretty confident in saying it's unheard of. I don't know of a national team manager in the world who has a commitment through 2 World Cup cycles. Because if you're signing that contract through 2 cycles and there's a commitment to it, that means they want to fire you. You're getting paid.
Yep.
Nobody does this. It doesn't happen. I mean, you've got South American managers signing agreements through qualifying, not even through the World Cup in 2022, through the end of the qualifying cycle. And Mexico reportedly is going to give Tata Martino a contract through 2026.
Yikes.
That makes a lot of sense when you're talking about, well, why would he leave and why would he go to Mexico? That is why, because that's unheard of. That doesn't happen.
Long-term deal, getting paid.
Long-term deal at a club is crazy. Long-term deal at a national team like this, being the highest paid national team manager in the world, according to some of the reports, that's insane.
That's the word I was going to use.
It shows some of the desperation on the Mexican side. Brad Kazan, and this is from Doug Robertson at training this morning, Kazan said Tata hasn't spoken to Atlanta United players about rumors, says he shouldn't. If players spent time discussing rumors, they'd never have time to train. I would agree with this. Look, this is the life. This is how it goes to be a manager or a player in the world's game. Rumors are going to pop up. Things are going to happen. And sometimes that deal that you can't say no to does happen. And this might be it. But the thing that jumped out to me in bright flashing lights, almost as if it was a Bomba de Pereira, was the fact that Mexico has contingencies in mind if Tata Martino does not sign the contract. A verbal agreement means nothing. Go ask Independiente about their verbal agreements when it came to the Ezequiel Barco transfer, and then they wanted double. That means nothing. It's a really interesting situation. Eric Gomez putting his name on it and it going on ESPN.com, that's a more substantial report. But even the report is not 100% certain. So I would still say stay tuned. But if this is the type of offer that we're talking about, through 2 World Cup cycles and the highest paid manager in the world at the national team level, it makes more sense as to why it would be so appealing.
Staggering if that is in fact the case. So, yeah, I mean, once again, what is it that was said in Glenn Ross and the epic Alec Baldwin rant? Get them to sign on the line which is dotted.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't happening.
When you're under contract, you're not signing on any lines, and Tata Martino's under contract. So
correct.
It's an interesting saga, and I don't think we're going to get any resolution anytime soon. Thank you to Mark Earhart, to Lewis Martin. Thomas Jewin's going to download this shortly. Who else had it? The Colonel's got it. Stephen Joyce. Joe, ATLUTD fan number 1. Thanks to everybody for downloading the Soccer Down Here app in the Apple App Store.
Spread the word.
Spread the word. It's a much easier way to listen to the show. Thank you, Apple. Thank you, Spreaker. Thank you, Tim from Home Before Dark for helping. And thanks to Phil from OSG for somehow getting this done because it was all to stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by ATLvCHI and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, October 19th, getting ready for a big weekend around Major League Soccer. We've talked Western Conference, we've talked Eastern Conference, and now the other match Atlanta United fans will be watching very closely, Philadelphia Union hosting the New York Red Bulls. Philadelphia in a playoff spot. Philadelphia is in a rather sweet spot when you're looking at the Eastern Conference. They have been on quite a hot streak. So have the Red Bulls, though. This is what Jim Curtin had to say this week. The only certainty in terms of opponent for the playoffs is that if we do win our next 2 games, we're guaranteed the 3 seed. That's what our guys are focused on now. It's going to be 2 difficult games against Red Bull and New York City FC. But if you do win 2 games in a row, which we're capable of, the 3 seed is ours in terms of tiebreakers and how things would shake out. That's our singular focus now. We want to host a home playoff game. Philadelphia's got a lot to play for. Red Bulls have a lot to play for. They want to keep the pressure up on Atlanta United. They do have a shot at Supporters' Shield. They do have a shot, a very slim one, at CONCACAF Champions League qualification before MLS Cup. Red Bulls still have a lot to play for. And we'll see how they handle a style in Philadelphia that, in my opinion, could give them some problems. I think Philly has some of the pieces that maybe Atlanta doesn't necessarily have or want to turn to in the way they play. Philly's comfortable playing more direct when they need to. It's a little different for Atlanta. I think that can be really successful against the Red Bulls. What do you think going into this one, John?
I think that Philly's going to give Red Bulls fits. I think it's going to be a draw, probably something 1-1, 2-2, but I think that Philly's going to give the Red Bulls fits all day long.
It was a draw last time they played, scoreless at Red Bull Arena this season. Last time in Philly was last June. Red Bulls won 2-0. It's a very different Philadelphia Union team last year. Chris Armas this week said they're well-coached and organized and have their style, and it goes right up against ours. They're a good team. Jimmy Curtin, we know him well. He does a great job with them and gets a lot out of the guys. They're always up for us, and we're always up for them, which always makes for a good game. Couple of things to keep in mind here, too, on the Red Bull side. 1 yellow card away from suspension, Kaku and Michael Murillo. 2 pretty key players that they get a yellow here, they would miss the regular season finale against Orlando. Philadelphia, a yellow to Alejandro Bedoya, and he would miss that game against NYC. I think this one is going to be a really fun watch. It's one I'll probably go back and watch in its entirety after I get home on Sunday night. 2 teams that I think have some similarities. I think two managers that know each other very, very well, two former teammates with the Chicago Fire, Jim Curtin and Chris Armas. But I'm fascinated to watch the Red Bulls become Chris Armas's team. And I still go back to Handshake Gate and that whole drama that dragged on for a while that a lot of people seem to look at as a negative. I thought it was Chris Armas's coming out party as the boss for the Red Bulls. I thought it was him taking control of this team. And not that, I don't think he had respect, but he was the new guy. Jesse Marsh was the guy. It's like when the substitute teacher becomes the permanent teacher, or the substitute teacher is going to be there for a little while, like earns the respect of the class by, I don't know. I don't know how they do it. I guess yelling at the class bully or something. But
being like Richard Mulligan in the movie Teachers, where you turn it into this interactive thing and you restore fun to history class.
I knew you'd have a movie reference for that. I feel like it was
even if
Chris
Mulligan
Armas
was clinically insane.
Well, there's that. I don't think Chris Armas is clinically insane. I think Chris Armas is a very, very smart guy. I think he has added a few little wrinkles to the Red Bulls, and I think he's made them better. And that's not to say Jesse Marsh, was worse. I think Armas has just watched it on the sideline as the number one, and he's probably been planning for this moment. He's probably been watching it for a long time and thinking that, hey, I get the opportunity. I'm going to tweak this. I'm going to touch this and make this a little different and make these adjustments because I think I know what these players are looking for or need. And I think he's done that. I think he's done a great job of it. Coming in midstream with a team this good is not easy to do. But I think Chris Armas has given them more of an edge. And I really feel like they played like they had a chip on their shoulder under Jesse Marsh, but never truly believed they were elite. I think Chris Armas has them believing they're elite. I don't think Chris Armas plays with a chip on his shoulder from a I think I'm less than you type of perspective. I think Chris Armas played when he was a player with a chip on his shoulder because he was going to break your kneecaps and he was going to do whatever it took to win the match. Loved him as a player, and I think he's starting to bring that personality across as a manager, and it's well suited for this team. I think they needed that. This is going to be a tough one for them, though. I think Philadelphia is starting to believe in themselves as well. And you get it from Curtin's comments. I think Philadelphia in the past would have been that team that would have been like, yeah, we're happy to be here. This is great. It's good to get into the playoffs. This is nice. Yay. But now it's like, you know what? We could be the 3 seed. There's no reason why we can't knock off the Red Bulls or Atlanta United and go to MLS Cup. I think Philadelphia is starting to believe that way. And they should.
Yeah, and we've seen with the young players, and really all you have to do at the back is sit there and look at the guys like Trustine McKenzie. And it's the personification of what they've been able to do going forward to get them to where they are. And that to me is what I'm looking forward to the most, is seeing how the back line of Philadelphia goes up against the offensive Red Bulls. And to me, that's like, when you're talking about the other football and you've got the team that's got the great running game, and then you've got the team that's got the great run defense. So how do you adjust and who blinks first? And that to me is what I'm looking at when it comes to Philly and Red Bulls. And I think that kind of that's why I think it's going to be a draw. That's why I think that both of their specialties will cancel the other out to a certain degree. And there'll be a moment. I don't know when that moment will be, but it will be something that I think that solidifies that it's a shared result.
Philadelphia 7-1-2 in their last 10. They've won 13 of their last 23. They started 1-3-2, and now they have the potential to get all the way to the number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. And they did it bouncing back after a bad loss in the Open Cup final, where they've lost 3 times in the final. They've been there to lift the trophy, and they lost. This was one they should have won, and they lose it. But they bounce back. Jim Curtin has done an amazing job this year. He is my coach of the year in Major League Soccer for what he's done with this group. I don't think they have the talent of New York or Atlanta, but I think they're a contender to play with either one and to play with the best teams in the Eastern Conference. They're a team that will be a handful in the playoffs for sure. I think Alejandro Bedoya is having the best season of his career. He's the perfect fit for this group. And if Philly can keep their heads dealing with the press, and we've seen Philly keep their heads pretty well dealing with New York in the past. If they keep their heads dealing with it, and they use C.J. Sapong out wide as a long target man, play to him, play to Corey Burke up top, go over the top, make New York have to sit back a little bit more. Philly can beat the Red Bulls. I think this one is going to be a draw. I think they are both very good, and they're probably going to cancel each other out in some ways. But if you told me that Philly won this 1-0 or 2-1, I wouldn't be shocked at all. They're just that good right now. They've had a bit of an issue with the Red Bulls. 6-12-5 all time in league play. It's better now, but is that going to be in their head? I don't think so. I think Jim Curtin has kind of gotten over the hump as a manager. I think you have a lot of new faces here who aren't going to be too bothered by that. I think Philadelphia will take points off the Red Bulls this weekend. I really do. And it's not so much that I don't believe in New York. It's more of I think Philadelphia is just that good.
So then let me ask you this question that came across on the Twitters.
Okay.
And it has to do with possible thought patterns. Jacob Austin. In the event that Red Bulls is winning in the second half Sunday, do we see Tata slam on the gas and go for goal differential instead of sitting back and slowing down as he's shown a tendency to do?
No, because Tata Martino controls it by winning out. If you were even, if you knew going in that, well, if we beat Toronto, then, yeah, we have to have goal differential to win it, then you're a different situation. But Atlanta's in control. You win both games, you go through. And Atlanta, I know it's in the fan base's head about going to Toronto, and man, that's a loss or that's a draw. I don't think this team thinks that way at all, and I don't think they should. Not with Victor Vasquez out, not with Altidore possibly out, not with Giovinco possibly not playing. I think that's a game. If you're going to win the Supporter Shield and you're going to be the best team in MLS history, you got to go to Toronto on decision day and beat them. If you don't deserve it. So, no, I don't think they – if New York is – well, and let's go back to Jacob's question. If New York is winning here, you're expecting New York to beat Orlando. So you got to win on decision day. It doesn't matter. Goal differential has nothing to do with it. So I don't think they're thinking about goal differential. I think Atlanta wins 1-0 both games. They're completely fine. There's nothing to worry about. I think it's just about taking care of business. So we'll get into that business on the other side. Atlanta, Chicago, and what this game looks like for the Five Stripes. Doug Robertson will join us at 10:30. We'll get his thoughts. He's been at training this morning. Any interesting comments coming out of the peeps? We'll talk to Doug about it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today today to see what you could save on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by ATLvCHI and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve ATLvCHI at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve ATLvCHI is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, October 19th edition. Atlanta United hosting the Chicago Fire on Sunday, 3 o'clock. Chicago beat Atlanta United in the Open Cup at Mercedes-Benz earlier this season. Chicago lost to Atlanta United at Toyota Park in Bridgeview earlier this season. Chicago's 2-2-1 in their last 5. This is a better Fire squad now that Jordy Mihailovic, Michael DeLue are back in the mix. We do have a bit of... It's not quite breaking, but we'll hit an air horn on it. Doug tweeted out a little bit ago at the top of the hour, Miguel Almiron, Tito Villalba out on Sunday. We were optimistic about Villalba because he kept training with Paraguay. He will be out on Sunday. Miguel Almiron, we expected to be out on Sunday. What would you do, John Nelson, with those two absences?
Let's see. That to me means Gressel moves up, Barco starts. So I'm looking at...
So you're going to move everything around then?
Yeah.
So that means if you're going to stick to 3-5-2, you would play Gressel as the 10 and Barco as the second forward?
Yeah.
And then who is the right wing back? Escobar?
Yeah.
Okay. That's definitely possible.
And then Garza/Bello would be a question on the left. Or McCann.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely a question on the left side. Let's stay on Miguel and Tito. So you're thinking in the 3-5-2, you've got to replace them in terms of the second forward and the number 10. Barco came in to replace Almiron in the last match. Tata Martino didn't say it was a definite that would be the case going forward. I think with both injuries, Barco's in one of the spots. I don't think there's any way he's not in one of them. Who's in the other? One way you could go is Romario Williams. If you want to go Romario and Joseph up top with Barco behind them, that's one way to play it. Keep Gressel out wide on the right where he's been most comfortable, and then you have your left wing back dilemma. We'll get there in a minute. Another solution would be to play Barco and Carlton together and probably play Carlton as the second forward in the more free role and play Barco as the 10 with a little more defensive responsibility. It's a little riskier, but you get two players who very creative in the middle of the field, not quite as much speed, but probably two of your most technical players in those spots. Or you could take the route, like you talked about. You could go Julian Gressel coming inside to play as a 10, Barco playing as the second forward, where he played a good bit in a 3-5-2 earlier this season, and then bring in Franco Escobar in as the right wing back. That's a very comfortable solution as well. Lots of different options here. for Tata Martino. You could go to the 4-2-3-1 if you want to go down that route. And if you go there, you could play Gressel on the right wing. You could play Barco on the right or on the left wing. You could play Carlton as a 10. You could bring Kevin Kratz into the group as a 10. Remember, and I think this is important, Kevin Kratz got a run out with Atlanta United 2 in their last match last Saturday. He hadn't played in a little while. You think that was an accident, John?
Nope. Nothing is ever an accident.
You could see Kevin Kratz and Ezequiel Barco start in the 3-5-2 here. Kratz as the 10, Barco as the second forward. I'm kind of thinking that's going to be the route. I think you keep Gressel out wide. I think you go Kratz as the 10. You go Barco as the second forward. And then the left side is the other question. Is it Greg Garza, who has been back in training for a week plus now? Is it George Bello coming off of games with the US U17s where Bello was lighting it up? Is it Chris McCann, who's back from yellow card accumulation suspension? What's your gut feeling?
Garza Bello.
Well,
I think Garza goes. Well, no, I'm saying Garza starts. Bello comes in at some point to spell him for the final 20 or 25 minutes or so. I think Garza starts, gets his run in, goes 70 or goes until he taps his helmet, and then Bello comes in.
I don't think you're bringing Bello in to close out a game. I don't think that's the case at all, because you're putting a lot of extra pressure on him in a point where you don't need to. I think if Garza gets the start, Bello comes in if the team is losing at that point or even at that point, and you're looking for a spark. If you're looking to close it out, you go to McCann, and he's going to stay at home more on the left side. I think that's the way it would work. But if Greg Garza is ready to start, I think you have to start him here, because you have to see what you have going into the postseason. You don't want to run it to the final day if you don't have to. If he can give you 60, I think you take 60 from Greg Garza here, and then you figure out the substitution at that point, whether it's McCann or Bello, depending on situation. But, yeah, I think if Garza's ready to start and give you at least 60, you've got to see what you have to work with, because you can't wait to give him his first minutes in the postseason. You can't wait, or you'd like to not wait until next week at least to see. I mean, if you have to, you have to, but man, I think you want to see what you have in Greg Garza right now before you make that decision. Because if you don't have him, there is Jose Hernandez still in the mix, but he hasn't seen much time with the first team. I think he's more of a depth piece or a substitute. I think you're making a decision between McCann and Bello, and they're completely different in what they give you in the 3-5-2. McCann is going to help you against teams that put you under more pressure defensively, but you have to worry about his speed. Bello is going to get forward much, much better and be more of an attacking threat, but you have to worry about him defensively in these moments because he's never been in them before. He's never been there before. It's a tough spot. It's a tough decision. Greg Garza gives you the best of both worlds. However, you don't know what you have in Greg Garza right now because we haven't seen him since the Red Bulls match back in May.
Been a while.
That's a long time. So, this is a very interesting match for Atlanta United. I think Atlanta has the depth to be fine against Chicago here. I'm not saying that, oh, no, they have injuries, so they're going to lose this. I don't think that's the case at all. I think they have lots of solutions, as we went through. Is it Kratz? Is it Williams? Is it Carlton? Is it Gressel sliding inside and Escobar coming in? You can work through this pretty well. And you've had 2 weeks where you knew you'd be losing Almiron, and most of those 2 weeks where you were worried about Tito. We've seen pictures and videos of both of them training. I don't think either one is long-term, but they're both out for Sunday. My gut feeling is Kevin Kratz as the 10, Barco as the second forward, Joseph up top, and you keep everything else the same as what we've seen. And Greg Garza, I'm assuming since he's been training fully, he's ready to give you at least 60 minutes.
All right, so to recap, LGP, Cap, Escobar.
No. LGP, Parkhurst, Lorenowitz.
Okay.
Your 3 center backs that have been playing lately. I think Jeff Lorenowitz is a center back from here on out for this team this season because Tata Martino has gone to the 3-5-2 pretty consistently in the last month. And I think it's because he thinks it's the best way to break New York's pressure and to play through it and stay true to who Atlanta is, but play through the pressure. He wants passing players in his back line. Lorenowitz is as good of a passer as you have. You want him there instead of Escobar.
And then, so that's your 3. Then you're looking at left back, Garza. And then just to name the rest of the 11, you've got Joseph, Barco, Nagbe, Gressel, Kratz, and Gazan in net.
My lineup from a formation would be a 3-5-2, Gazan in goal, LGP, Parkhurst, Lorenowitz as your 3 center backs left to right, Garza left wing back, Gressel right wing back, Remedi, Nagbe as your holding midfielders behind Kevin Kratz, Ezequiel Barco supporting Joseph Martinez up top. That would be my starting lineup at this point, based off the way things have been handled in these last 2 weeks. I think the Kevin Kratz 90 minutes against Richmond in the final Atlanta United 2 game was your tell. I think he's going to get the start here.
Yeah,
I think there was a potential of it if Tito was available. I think that was maybe the idea about who would play as the 10 in place of Miguel. I think Kratz might have been the guy all along. He's not Miguel Almiron. We know that. He's not Miguel Almiron in terms of speed. But he gives you that two-way game. And Tata Martino is always going to go to that side. He wants a complete team here. When he plays a guy like a Barco, who you have to protect in some ways, he doesn't want to put him in this 10 role the way Miguel plays it and the way the team is used to it, because you're going to be taking away from Barco's attacking performance a lot more. Kratz gives you more of a two-way game, and he's a more like-for-like in that role than Barco is. But now, with Tito out, then you can get the best of both worlds, because you have Barco in a freer role as the second forward behind Joseph, where Barco can drift out wide, he can drift to either side, he can drift back. He can go find the game in that role more than he could as a 10. That's a little bit easier for him right now. So I think Kevin Kratz is going to be the guy here, and we've seen him in this role before. I don't think it's a shock, and I think he can get the job done against Chicago.
So then the rest of your 18?
If I'm going with that as the 11, then the rest of the 18, Alec Can, that's 12. Chris McCann, George Bello, 13-14. Franco Escobar, 15. Andrew Carlton, 16. Romario Williams is 17. 18's tricky. I don't know. Could be Wheeler Amanu. Could be a complete surprise. I'd have to look at the roster to see who's in the 30, but, I mean, do you go with a John Gallagher? Do you go with a Lagos Kunga? Do you go with somebody like that as more of a surprise who gives you something that you don't have in the group right now? It's possible. And remember, Gallagher has been playing on the right side of the back line and as a right back and a right wing back for a reason. And this was something we talked about yesterday with Scott Donnelly. You know, it happened first out of necessity because you didn't have any wide players and you played the 4-4-2 diamond, and it's like, man, we got to have somebody at right back. John, are you up for it?
Hey, you.
Sure, coach. And he does it, and it's like, wow, okay, wait a minute. This is something we need to see. Let's see more of this. Maybe he gets that opportunity if he's eligible. And I don't have the roster in front of me in terms of the 30 and if he's on that roster to be able to play. I'd have to look at it. But I think you might see a wild card like that. So it's an interesting spot. That last spot on the 18, who might not see the field, but still, you're thinking about overall depth. I think your lineup is going to be that. I think if Garza's ready to give you 60, then he gets the start, and I think you really want to see him here. And I'm leaning towards Kratz and Barco as your replacements for Almiron and Villalba. We'll see what Doug Robertson thinks on the other side. We're going to dial him up. We're going to take a break. We'll make our predictions for Atlanta and Chicago just after this. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by ATLvCHI Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve ATLvCHI at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve ATLvCHI is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
All right, we're back. Soccer Down here, October 19th edition. The difficulties of self-production right now. We are trying to add Doug Robertson to the call as I'm juggling a phone and a Skype and a microphone and a board all at the same time.
Is that all?
Yeah, I'm like a clown at this
You only
point.
got the Ford job done? Feels like the In Living Color sketch.
Man, it does, doesn't it? So we're trying to get Doug on. We will continue to effort before we are done for the day to get Mr. Robertson on with us. He's a busy man. Lots of stuff going on at the training ground these days. Lots of rumors to debunk, lots of rumors to follow. Doug stays busy. I wanted to touch on this real quick while we got a second. Very interesting thing I just saw at the BBC. Headline, Marcelo Bielsa, Leeds United head coach, quote, pays debt to Newell's Old Boys. Not like that. He didn't owe them money. This is what Bielsa said. They are the club that formed me. I received more than what I gave to them. I'm paying a debt to them, not giving them a gift. The infrastructures of the institution help the team to prepare well. Two things are important for a team, the quality of the players and the quality of the preparation they receive. Bielsa is donating a reported $2.5 million to Newell's Old Boys to help build a new training facility, which opens next month. Very cool stuff. Props to Marcelo Bielsa. And props to Doug Robertson, who's now joined us. What's up, Doug?
Hey, sorry about that. Skype had logged me out, and I didn't know it.
Infernal Skype.
I've been waiting on y'all to call, not realizing that you couldn't call. So I apologize.
It's all good. We were able to talk about Marcelo Bielsa donating money to Newell's Old Boys, so it's all good.
Something about that is a good metaphor for what's going on with Martino to Mexico, but right now I can't sort that one out in my head, but it's close.
Yeah, this whole thing, it's kind of crazy, but if there's a verbal agreement, okay, whatever, why is Mexico still worried about contingencies if he doesn't take the job? And if they're offering him a 2-cycle contract that would make him the highest paid manager in the world, man, Mexico's gone nuts.
Well, okay, couple of things about both those points.
Yes.
One of the things that Martino said today to us was that he hadn't had a chance to talk to Darren this week, as he declined to discuss the Mexico stuff. Sure. Now, that could be one of two things in my mind. One is you have to tell Darren, I've agreed to take the Mexico job after this is over. Or it could be, this is what Mexico's offering. What can you scenario? Okay. Number two, unless it's a guaranteed 2-year cycle, that would really surprise me that Martino, based upon his work experience, would want to be anywhere for 7 years, which is what this contract would be for. Yeah. Considering he's never been anywhere calendar date-wise longer than 3 years. That would stun. Well, there's a lot of things about him to Mexico that would stun me. That would be among the leaders.
Yeah, I think the only way it makes sense is, like you said, guaranteed money over 7 years. So if they decide to, if he struggles in qualifying year one and they're like, yeah, we're making a change, they're paying him. That's hard to turn down. I get that if that's the case. And it's unheard of. I mean, nobody guarantees 2 World Cup cycles. Remember the outcry when Sunil Gulati extended Jurgen Klinsmann before the World Cup. Like, not even signing him initially to 2 World Cup cycles, but just extending him for another cycle before the World Cup in 2014. People were like, wow, this is crazy. Nobody does this. What Mexico is reportedly, and we will stress, reportedly talking about with Tata Martino is borderline unheard of in the world's game.
Doug, when it comes to all of the things that you have heard involving Tata Martino, what has been the wildest thing that you have heard in this entire process when it comes to job future, all that? What's been the thing that was on the bulletin board that you sat there and said, that's crazy insane? What's the wildest thing that you've heard in this entire process?
I don't know if any of it has been too wild. I'm just still more stunned that he would want that job. I mean, I was just rereading stories yesterday that I had written and others had written, in which he talked about one of the reasons he wanted to come to Atlanta and Major League Soccer was because he could just coach. You didn't have to deal with all the other stuff that he had to deal with at Barcelona and with Argentina. And that he was appreciating that he could just coach. When you go to Mexico, it's a totally different ballgame. It's the most, in my opinion, the most scrutinized job in the world for a club or country. Despite the fact that the scrutiny isn't justified based upon the country's history in the sport, but it's and I mean, Martino talks with us and he does it with a smile on his face, but it's not something that he particularly enjoys. That's going to be magnified by about 25 times as coach of Mexico, unless he's gotten into the contract something about media obligations and press conferences and all that somehow the FMF can control. I mean, I don't blame Mexico for wanting him for a 2-year cycle. I think that's what the U.S. should do. But it all depends upon the coach. Martino has proven himself beyond a shadow of a doubt that he can manage both for club and country. Mexico needs stability. It needs someone that's going to carry this younger generation through the 2 cycles. It's what I think the U.S. should do with its next job, as long as it's the right guy. I don't think Berhalter is the right guy to hand a 7-year contract to.
No, I think there's very few managers in the world you're giving a 7-year deal to. And Tata Martino in Mexico might be one of those. Berhalter's not. Tata Martino for the U.S., Well,
I would do that if I were the U.S. and it were Martino. I wouldn't do it, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think it's such a risk because a World Cup cycle is such a finite kind of thing. Like you get through one, and it's just so rare that you see guys stay on past one cycle and have success. And we've never seen it in the U.S. Arena's second cycle in 06 was nowhere near what 02 was, and we know what happened with Klinsmann. Really, Yogi Löw in Germany is about it here lately. It's just such a tough gig. It has to be a great manager and a great choice to do it. And, yeah, Tata Martino's that kind of guy.
I think the circumstances are such that I know that people want to say that CONCACAF is a tough region, but come on, it's not. I mean, it's considering the resources the U.S. has devoted to soccer, CONCACAF should be the easiest region in the world for any one country to qualify for the World Cup from, considering the number of spots it's given, the number of teams that compete within the region. So a 7-year deal, for me, not a bad thing for the U.S. The World Cup in Qatar for the U.S. is basically going to be growing pains, learning curve type of thing, with the target on 2026 for the World Cup in the U.S. I approach this first World Cup as we're going to do our best. We hope to have great results, but the most important thing is that we are learning lessons that we apply to 2026 qualifying and the World Cup. That's why you got to keep the same guy.
Yeah, if you're you keep the same guy if you're hiring somebody like a Tata Martino. If you're hiring a Greg Berhalter, no, he doesn't get a 7-year contract for that. There's nothing in his track record to show that you're going to count on him for 7 years. He's got to prove himself in the first cycle.
Right.
Now, you might have an option, whatever, but that's a different story. Anyway, we could talk about rumors out of Mexico all day because there's plenty. But let's get into Atlanta, Chicago. So you reported a few minutes ago, Miguel Almiron out, no huge surprise there. Tito Villalba out, maybe a little bit of a surprise because we were a little more optimistic about him, but both out for Sunday.
Both are out for Sunday, a minimum of Sunday. Right. Greg Garza is back in, eligible to be selected for the 18. I asked Martino, I can't remember another league game that Atlanta United has played in which it didn't have either Almiron or Villalba in the lineup. And Martino couldn't either. He thinks this would be the first time. And so, I said, how do you overcome that? And he said, well, I've said this many times, but this team is deeper than last year's team. So we're going to see some depth. I think you're going to see Barco in for Almiron. I think you'll see Gressel pushed up into the Villalba role and Escobar coming in at the right fullback or right wingback, depending upon what they play on Sunday.
So then the question is, Greg Garza, what do you see him doing when it comes to either the 11 or the 18 on the weekend?
I don't think you're going to see Bello. I think coming back from that tournament, that's just a little too much to ask. I know he's got young legs, but still. I think you'll see McCann in and Garza on the bench. And should Atlanta United have a good lead, you'll see Garza get some minutes in just to start to work on getting his legs back under him.
What do you think about Chicago? This is a team that struggled all year. They've played better here in the last, 4 to 6 weeks. They've been 2-2-1 in their last 5. They've gotten Mihailovic and Deleu back, so they're a little more dangerous going forward. How do you think Chicago can hurt Atlanta on Sunday?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so much depends upon if Schweinsteiger plays. I don't know if he's going to want to come play on turf. I know he did in the U.S. Open Cup. I'll be stunned if he does in this game because Chicago really has nothing to play for. I don't know why Schweinsteiger would want to come and risk the perceived risk of injury on turf. I don't know if that's a legitimate thing anymore. But they have a strong midfield. And they can attack. I mean, they are 2-2-2 in their past 6 games. They can beat you on the counter, which Atlanta United has been susceptible to, particularly when they have those little 30-second lapses in concentration. Chicago does have good one-on-one players. It's just they typically don't put them in positions to succeed.
So then when it comes to this particular match, is there one thing that concerns you more than most about Atlanta United coming into this match against Chicago, knowing everything that's on the line?
It's the typical thing when Atlanta United plays a team like this, that they get too hyped too quickly, stretch themselves too thin trying to score a goal in the first 5 minutes, and Chicago gets them on a counter and scores a goal and then is allowed to bunker, and Atlanta United has trouble breaking it down. No one says they're going to be paying attention to what's going on in the Red Bulls game. I find that incredibly difficult to believe. Almost impossible to believe. I know Atlanta United needs to win. They win, they take care of things. But if Red Bulls are trailing by 1 goal and Atlanta United is winning by 1 goal, I think that would factor into what Martino does with the substitutions, for example. Or the converse, if Red Bulls are winning 1-0 and Atlanta United is trailing 1-0, that is definitely going to impact what he's doing with the substitutions. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a full stadium. It won't be Martino's last home game, but it may be one of his last home games.
Well, since you mentioned Red Bulls Philly, and before we get into our predictions for Atlanta Chicago, what do you think happens for Philadelphia as they host the Red Bulls?
Philly's playing so well. They're a lot of fun to watch right now. And Red Bulls have struggled against Philly. Red Bulls typically play the good teams a lot better than they play the poor teams. Red Bulls know what's at stake. They went out to San Jose in a game that could have been a little bit of a trick and just demolished them. Philadelphia is trying to chase down NYCFC for that 3rd spot and get the home game and the playoffs. I think it's going to be a draw. I think Philly and Red Bulls are going to end up drawing.
Yeah, I'm leaning that way too. I think that's going to be a draw. I think Philly's going to play them really tough, and Philly's got a shot to move up the ranks. I think they have a lot to play for. They're a team that is going to be tough to deal with in the playoffs. I think the Union are coming in with a lot of confidence.
There are a lot of teams in the East.
Yeah.
I can't think of a team in the East except for maybe NYCFC
Columbus.
right now.
Columbus is kind of – they're just kind of fizzling, but we'll see
they're so good on defense, though.
They are.
That's the thing that's good. They're so good on defense.
Yeah. And we'll see if the whole save
cross.
the crew thing, if that, now that it's done, at least close to being done or somewhat done, or we know they're going to be back there next year, if that gives them a boost, because it could give them that emotional lift that they've needed, because they've just been kind of there here lately. But yeah, NYC and Columbus are maybe the shakier teams in the East. DC's looking great. Philly's looking great. Atlanta and Red Bulls seem to be a cut above. It's going to be a great playoff.
It will. Columbus, as we saw last year, they can win in the playoffs. And all it takes is 1 cross and 1 corner kick for Zardes to change a game.
And you look at how Columbus made a run last year with hot goalkeeping from Zach Steffen. Bill Hamid is capable of these things. Andre Blake, capable of these things. So you've got some really top goalkeepers here, too. So if they get hot in the playoffs, it's going to be a fun watch across the board. I think the Western Conference will have lots of twists and turns, too. But let's get to Atlanta, Chicago. Predictions for this one. Jarrett is on 92.9 duty this morning. He has sent in his prediction of 2-1. Chicago scores late to make it close, but it's a solid showing. He's also thinking draw Philly 2-2, and he thinks BWP drags the Red Bulls to a point in that one late. John, prediction for Atlanta, Chicago.
Let's go with 3-1 Atlanta United. Mihailovic scores for Chicago, but I'll say a fairly comfortable early lead and a 3-1 final.
3-1, pretty comfortable. Okay. Doug?
I'm going to say 3-0 Atlanta United with a Martinez hat trick, because what the hell?
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go 2-0. I think Atlanta's able to just control this game and limit the opportunities from Chicago. I think Tata Martino is trying to treat these matches a little more like they're playing playoff matches, where maybe they're not quite as wide open and freewheeling, a little more of controlling the match. Even if it's a lesser opponent, you can still prepare that way. And I think you might see some lower scoring, but less options for the opposition. So I'm going to go 2-0. I think you get a goal from Martinez, and I think you get a goal from Kevin Kratz. That's my prediction. Doug, what else? No, Kevin Kratz from the run of play. That's where I'm going. I'm going to go completely off the board today. Doug, what else do you have at the AJC coming up ahead of Sunday?
Well, I'm going to file a short on the Almiron and Biaba updates. I've only tweeted it so far. I'm going to have something on Guzan and Gressel, saying that so far all these rumors are not a distraction. Rumors about Martino are not a distraction. If y'all haven't already read Steve Hummer's story about Julian Gressel that he posted yesterday, I hope that you'll go and read that, because Steve is one of the best sports writers in the country, and always has a way with words that is humorous and enlightening at the same time. So I hope you'll read that. And I'm going to be on, it's not a competitor because it comes on at a different time, but it'd be on Jason Davis's show on Sirius, logging in at 12:20 to talk to him about Gerardo Martino. So I hope y'all listen to that, as well as continue to listen to this wonderful show.
And Southern Fried Soccer. And we will be talking after the game on Sunday. And yeah, I will echo the kudos for the article from Hummer about Gressel. Great piece there. Love when he gets into some of the personalities around Atlanta United. If you're not following Doug on Twitter, Doug Robertson, HAC. If you're not following on Facebook, it's Atlanta United News Now. And if you're not subscribing to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, you are doing it wrong. There are lots of different ways to do it. You can get the paper delivered. You can do an electronic subscription. You can do a combination of the two. I'm a subscriber. I've been one for a long time to support the great work of Doug and everybody in the sports department. So get on it, people.
Thank you, Jason.
No problem. And I will see you on Sunday at the Benz.
All right, guys. Y'all take care.
Thanks, dude.
Doug Robertson, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. We're going to take a break, come back, and wrap the show up on the other side. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by ATLvCHI and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve ATLvCHI at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve ATLvCHI is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Final segment. Soccer Down here, October 19th edition. Couple days away from pre-decision day. Kind of decision day. Sort of decision
penultimate
day.
Decision day.
Penultimate decision day. Some decision day. I don't know. There's going to be decisions that are made on Sunday. Eastern Conference games at 3 o'clock. Western Conference games at 5 o'clock. Lots of playoff ramifications across the board. I believe we have our standings in the Bailey Daily Cup.
Yep. Housekeeping. First and foremost, the Mucha Plata Cup has already been settled before penultimate decision day. The listeners have a 3-game lead with 2 games to play. So the listeners won the Mucha Plata Cup. So mazel tov to y'all. Listener Shield. Doug was mathematically eliminated, I think, back in April. And he has 51 points with a goal difference of -2. Jarrett and Josh are at 58 points. Jason is at 66, and I am doing my Jose Mourinho darndest to park the bus with a 5-point lead with 2 matches to play with 66 points.
Now, wait, what's the scoring here? You're on 66 points.
You're in 61.
Okay, yeah. So, it's not done, but yeah, it's pretty much done. Anyway, whatever. Meh. That's what I have to say about it.
Also, we have, I think it's the semifinals for the Fantasy League from Soccer Down Here, sponsored by the Jason Wright Agency and our friends at Country Financial.
Yes.
So if you're a part of that, congratulations on getting this far in. And thanks to everybody who joined the Fantasy League this year. It was an experiment that we wanted to try just to kind of unite all the listeners. And it was pretty cool to continue to get schooled on a weekly basis, especially when it took me about half the season to sit there and start and captain Joseph. So that was pretty much the way it was for me. But thanks to everybody, and thanks to Jason Wright and the Wright Agency and Country Financial for sponsoring that all season long. Your Bailey Daily poll right now, 70% of you think that Atlanta United is going to win by 2 or more goals. 28% of you think Atlanta is going to win by 1 goal. 3% of you think it's going to be a draw, which means it's 101%. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, it happens. Stuff gets rounded. Things happen. More housekeeping before we go into a little bit of stoppage time. And we've got some interesting stoppage time topics as we round everything up. But, okay, Sunday, 11 a.m., tailgate show presented by ATLvCHI and Associates. Steve ATLvCHI's been a huge sponsor of ours for the last 2 years. Excited to bring you the tailgate show. You can watch on Twitter at Soccer Down Here at about 11 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. You can join us at the Faction tailgate in the Gulch as well, and we will be looking for your predictions there. The craziest prediction wins stuff. The craziest prediction that comes true wins stuff. We haven't ever had any crazy prediction that's come true yet. The closest one was... somebody predicted 6-0 against the Galaxy, and it got to 4, and I thought I was going to have to give up a scarf, but it stayed at 4, so we survived. So, 11 o'clock in the Gulch and on Twitter at Soccer Down Here, the tailgate show presented by ATLvCHI and Associates. Tuesday, go ahead and get your calendar out and mark down 7 o'clock p.m. You need to be at Fido Irish Pub in Buckhead for Stoppage Time Live from 92.9 The Game. Myself, Mike Conti, Jimmy Vance, Kelly Francis is joining us as our first official booked guest for Stoppage Time Live. Kelly Francis from Unrelegated. We will have a guest from Atlanta United as well. And you can watch it on the stream on Facebook.com/929 The Game. You can watch that on demand whenever you want. But you won't get the full picture. You won't get everything that we're doing on Tuesday if you're not there. We're going to have some giveaways. We're going to do some Q&A after the stream is over. So if you want to ask Mike about restaurant recommendations, or if you
movie
want to
sequels,
ask why Break Into Electric Boogaloo is one of the greatest sequels of all time, we'll be there for you.
Why he hates Blues Brothers.
Yes, that's all fair game in the Q&A after the stream. So come out, settle down. You can come out and join us at Fido Irish Pub in Buckhead. This is something brand new that the station is behind, that Fido is behind, and we want to make it a regular thing in 2019, but we need your support to do it. We will be doing these every Tuesday, 7 o'clock, live at Fido Irish Pub in Buckhead for the rest of this season through the playoffs. So join us. And we'd love to continue this into 2019 if it is well received. Okay. That's your stuff. Stoppage time starts here, and it starts with some sponsorship stuff, which is interesting. DC United, and this is all from Pablo Maurer at The Athletic. The Lados sponsorship deal with DC on the front of their shirt is up at the end of the season. According to Pablo, the club has talked to Amazon, United Airlines, Qatar Airways, Edward Jones Financial, Deloitte, ESPN+, a ton of different potential front-of-the-shirt sponsors. They're looking for some cash. Big cash. Roughly, they're getting $3 million a year this year. They're in the top third of the league with that. They're trying to get 5. The Galaxy get the most in the league from Herbalife. They get more than $5 million a year. I don't know what that number is. Seattle gets 4.1 a year from Xbox. New York City gets $4 million a year from Etihad Airways. They're banking on the presence of Wayne Rooney, the new stadium, and just being relevant again. It's increased the number of impressions from their jersey 4-fold, according to the club. That is trying to increase the number of dollars that are in their bank account for this deal. Another interesting thing in the deal is that in 2019, and this is from Pablo's article at The Athletic, teams will be able to sell advertising space on their sleeves. Now, we see other leagues do this. DC is valuing that space somewhere between $500,000 a year and $1 million a year. That's another revenue source that's pretty substantial. You know, if you look at this from DC, say they're getting $3 million a year right now, and they get $5 million from whichever one of those sponsors. We'll just say Amazon because it's the first one on the list. And then they get another $1 million from somebody else for the sleeve. You're doubling your sponsorship revenue in 1 year. That is a pretty big deal. So, be on the lookout to see who Atlanta United gets for their first sleeve sponsorship if they go that route in 2019. And these are some of the numbers to keep in mind when the American Family Insurance deal is up. I don't know how long that was for. I don't think it was ever announced. Generally, they're not. You know, I'm surprised to see these kind of numbers to begin with because this stuff usually doesn't come out. So stay tuned, but these are the ballparks you're talking about. I know Atlanta and the AmFam deal is in the top half of the league. I do remember seeing that at one point, but I don't know where exactly it slots. I don't know if numbers were ever really, truly understood on that. Other stuff that we need to get into real quick. New York City FC. Claudio Reyna gave an interview, and he said the club is 3 years minimum from having a USL affiliate. As we talked about with Real Salt Lake, as we've talked about with Atlanta United too, they're kind of important. This is the quote from Claudio Reyna about it. We are always talking about it, but I think we need to be patient with what direction we do, especially when we're investing money and there's cost that goes into a commitment from NYCFC to a second team. We're exploring it. The good thing is on the soccer side, we and I have great relationships with a lot of USL coaches. And I think looking at year by year, next year we'll be able to provide opportunities for our players, and the year after that likely as well. So you'll be able to send guys out on loan, but you're not going to have that control over it. And we've talked about how important that control can be. I'm a little surprised by this, to be honest. I think they would greatly benefit from it. I think guys like Scally and Sands, young homegrowns that are not ready for the first team yet, would really benefit from having a USL team or even a just consistent USL affiliate right now. I think that would be a huge help. A little surprised by Reyna's comments, John.
You ain't lying. It's I feel like Ross Geller all over again. Why? 3 years minimum? Hello? So I stared at that paragraph and I was like, seriously, dude? All right. That's how you want to do it.
That's strange. Sam Stejkal says that if Greg Berhalter leaves Columbus, and that could be to go to the LA Galaxy, or it could be to go to the U.S. men's national team, SDH thinks that Josh Wolf will be offered the head coaching job in Columbus. This is something that's a little different, I think, with some of the American coaches as opposed to a lot of the international coaches that we see. Tata Martino brought his staff with him. He has guys that he's worked with for a number of years. He added to it. He supplemented it with guys who understand the league, like Dario Sala, and guys who understand American soccer, like on the sports science side and some of that. But generally, your crew rolls with you. And, yes, sometimes guys do get that opportunity to get the head job afterwards. I think the way coaching staffs have been constructed in MLS previously is more of, I'm going to hire good assistants, and they'll take jobs when they're ready. So this would be intriguing. So if Berhalter goes to the national team, who's he going to take with him? Who are his guys? If Wolf is not one of his guys, if Wolf is going to stay in Columbus and take a head job, or at least be considered for it, who is Berhalter going to be counting on? Because we talk about the head coach all the time, and we should. They're the front man. They're the lead singer. But they can't be successful if they don't have the right staff around them. And if they're just piecing together a staff, then I've got some problems with that. I want somebody to bring in a staff that they know they can work with. I don't want to see them just hire who's available. So that concerns me a little bit.
Yeah. What is it about stoppage time where all we're sitting at, we seem to be staring at teams and you're sitting there going, okay. This is the raised eyebrow section of the program.
Yeah. It is. It very much is. You want some more raised eyebrows?
Hit me.
Go follow Yes That Brooke, Brooke Brooke Tunstall, great reporter on soccer based out of the Washington D.C. area. You can scroll back through the timeline a little bit, and Brooke has some interesting things to say about the U.S. men's national team job and comparing Mr. Tata Martino and Mr. Greg Berhalter, and just comparing Greg Berhalter's success to others in the league. And the things that jump out are, in his 64 games with Atlanta United, Tata Martino is 35, 15, and 16 for a winning percentage of 65%. Far and away the best regular season winning percentage in MLS history. And it's, as Brooke says, even more impressive considering he started from scratch with an expansion team. Tunstall goes in on the fact that if Martino's not being considered for the U.S. men's national team because he doesn't speak English, that's ridiculous. Compares it to Bora Milutinovic, who spoke broken English, generally did training in Spanish, translation from assistants. Steve Sampson, being bilingual, was part of that staff. Just really goes in on it and goes in on some of the other conflicts of interest that could be there on the U.S. soccer side that they say they're addressing in Greg Berhalter's brother being high up in the federation. They're saying that he hasn't had anything to do with the hiring process. I don't know. I have to take them at their word. But, yeah, when you just look at the sheer numbers and you look at success and you look at Tata Martino's record in Major League Soccer versus Greg Berhalter's record in Major League Soccer, they're not comparable. They're just not. Berhalter is 66, 57, and 45 regular season in Major League Soccer, which is not bad. But, and there's a really good point that somebody responded to Brooke Tunstall with. Brian Benedict, training for sport. Been involved in lots of different things in the sporting industry, and this is a great point. Two of the most riveting stories in English football right now are Bielsa at Leeds, Sarri at Chelsea. Not speaking English. Why is U.S. soccer making this such a big prerequisite?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And as we've said consistently, if Martino goes, then hey, if it's an offer like what is reportedly being offered from Mexico, I can understand it completely. No problem. But if he goes elsewhere and U.S. Soccer doesn't talk to him, then I have a problem with that.
Yep.
There's just no good excuse for not having that conversation. And maybe it doesn't work out, but, man, you got to have the conversation. You got to talk about it.
Got to, exclamation point, underlined, italicized, boldface, large font.
Yep. That's it. Stoppage time done. Show done.
Done.
Done. We will see you guys from the tailgate Sunday at 11 on twitter.com/soccerdownhere and live in person at the Faction Tailgate in the Gulch, Atlanta, Chicago.
Download the app if you're on iOS.
Download the app wherever you are, whatever operating system you have. Check out the Scott Donnelly 1v1. Check out Charleston Battery Weekly later today. And we will talk to you guys on Sunday. Mucho plata, y'all.
Mucho plata, y'all.